Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Batman Superman World's Finest issue 48, written by Mark Waid with art by Marcus To, colors by Tamara Bonvillain, and letters by Steve Wands. The crime syndicate comes for the world's finest as many years ago in Gotham, Joe Chill confronts the Waynes in Crime Alley, demanding their valuables. Things take a turn as while Joe relieves Martha of her pearls, Thomas pulls a gun, but when he pulls the trigger, the gun clicks, its magazine empty. Joe does what we know he usually does and guns down the Waynes, something young Bruce is counting on, as it turns out we're on EARTH-3, and Bruce has paid Joe Chill half of his inheritance to kill his parents, although he never intends to pay Joe Chill, he'll end up killing him later on. Waid taking the book from a Joker-Lex-centric storyline into one that shifts focus onto some other villains is a great idea, keeping the villain train going, and it's doing some stuff as well that's also re-establishing EARTH-3, which has kind of been all over the place in the last few years. Like, it's been destroyed, it was taken over by a new generation of heroes, the crime syndicate kind of like changed ranks and like who they were and what they are, but it looks like Mark Waid is kind of bringing it back to, square one. Everything's kind of how you sort of remember it with Ultraman, Owlman, Superwoman, all of those characters, and this is the genesis of the crime syndicate, the origin. 20 years after the death of the Waynes, Ultraman terrorizes Metropolis, lasering people with his heat vision as he flies through the streets. As families hide in fear, the villain speeds off to the Gotham Forge Steel, where he meets with Owlman, who has cornered the Riddler, and since this is EARTH-3, Riddler is actually a good guy in this situation. The problem here is that Owlman has no time for his riddles and doesn't really care for them, so when Riddler gives him a riddle, he just kicks the man into the molten iron pool below them, killing him. Owlman gets to the why he called Ultraman to him, talking about how many times they have talked about starting their own syndicate and wiping the other syndicates off the map, something Ultraman thinks could be fun. Owlman wants him to take this seriously since he has recently learned that Star Labs has found something that could help them greatly, and they might actually be able to do it right this time. I really like the dynamic Waid is going for here with Owlman and Ultraman and how it's a reverse mirror of the actual world's finest Batman and Superman. Ultraman is lighthearted, like Superman, but it's a psychotic lightheartedness. He likes violence and fighting and power and everything, and Owlman is more logical thinking. He's the intelligent one. He's doing everything, in the shadows, to broker power and wanting more glory and money and status in the world. Waid also dives a little deeper into Owlman as the villain reveals that he learned about the objects Star Labs found from Talon, his ward, his version of Robin, who actually died to bring him the information, telling Owlman that Niles Calder actually stole the object from Star Labs. The peek into the Talon-Robin situation on EARTH-3 is rather grim. We kind of saw the Talons like way back in the New 52 when they were doing the Villains Month stuff with the crime syndicate. We saw a bunch of different Talons there, but we've never really kind of gone into what they are and who they are and everything. Obviously they're, Dick Grayson, or Tim Drake, all of those characters, but how does like Owlman's Robin work? And we kind of get like a hint at that as once this Talon dies, Owlman tells his Alfred to go and get another one, and we find that he just orders up another child to be given a suit from multiple children he has imprisoned in his owl cave. He's got like this little cell filled with children that he just grabs and has already sort of trained, and they become his new ward. It's really fucking grim. Owlman and Ultraman meet with the new Talon, another scared boy who has brought Owlman a special case from the trophy room in the owl cave. The villains find themselves near Niles Calder's mansion, and Talon has set a meeting with Niles for Owlman and Ultraman, who go and meet with the Doom Syndicate, EARTH-3's version of the Doom Patrol. So it's pretty clear that Waid is also using this arc to expand EARTH-3's hero and villain rosters greatly, and so far it's great. We get more of the Talons and how fucked up they are, a deeper look in how, the villains of this Owlman act, Riddler, who's, more of a hero, and it's just now we also get the Doom Patrol, their version of the Doom Patrol, which I like is set up as a rival syndicate, because there isn't like Justice Leagues or Teen Titans in this world, it's just other criminal syndicates, and that's why the crime syndicate syndicate's going to come along. They're going to be the syndicate that takes on all the other syndicates and wins. And I like that every little group is just called a syndicate. That's really cool. You know, Doom Syndicate, that's a really cool name too. So Niles reveals the object he found is a catalyst for conquest and could help someone attain great power. And he doesn't know where it came from though, since it was stolen from him before he had a chance to study it. Ultraman confirms Niles is actually telling the truth by using his hearing to hear if his heartbeat changed at all during his confession. But while he is telling the truth, Niles won't actually tell who it was taken by, since information comes with a price. Owlman expected as much, since the giant case Talon acquired for him is his payment, and we learn what it is in the case as it's revealed to be the hands of every single rogue from Central City, along with their respective weapon, like Mirror Master's Warp Gun, Captain Cold's Freeze Ray, and Weather Wizard's Climate Wand. Calder, however, doesn't really care for any of this stuff, calling all of the tech beneath him, and he will not accept it, so he wants Owlman's second offer. Owlman and Ultraman respond by attacking, melting Robot Man's head and freezing Elastigirl's arms with Captain Cold's Freeze Ray. Negative Man proves to be quite the match, as the being leaves Larry's body and enters Ultraman, causing the villain immense pain. Owlman demands to know what he's doing to Ultraman, and Niles only goads him on, believing Ultraman to have been so smart since he should know that Negative Man is mimicking red solar radiation, which weakens Ultraman greatly. This is a great mirror of back in the early issues of Wade's World's Finest, Batman and Superman actually teamed with the Doom Patrol and used their powers to help them out on a mission in a really unique way. So I like that. We're getting the inverse of that, which is they fight the Doom Patrol and actually have to go up against them and actually fight against these weirdos who kind of give these characters a run for their money. Owlman comes to Ultraman's aid, deploying a smoke grenade which embeds lead dust into Larry's skin, meaning Negative Man must return to his body to help save him or he'll die. But thanks to the lead, Negative Man cannot enter Larry's body, so without his phantom friend, Larry dies and so does Negative Man. With Ultraman back in action, he tosses Niles hard into a bookcase, knocking him out cold. And sometime later when Niles wakes up, he finds he can't feel his arms now, and the villains demand the identity of who stole the device. Niles relents and quickly tells him that Will Magnus was the one who stole it, as it's revealed that Owlman and Ultraman grafted Niles' body onto Robot Man's, leaving him alive but without proper limbs or any movement in them. Wade really isn't pulling any punches when it comes to how terrifying and violent these two villains are. Again, it's going to be going for that contrast between them and Superman and Batman, but I love that it's actually doing horrible stuff and not just mustache-twirling evil comic bad guy who's a mirror of the good guy stuff, like, you know, running criminal gangs or stealing money, which we have seen the EARTH-3 crime syndicate doing before. With a new target in their sights, the world's worst head for Magnus Robotics, where Will Magnus brings Platinum online, upgrading her responsometer. After she succeeds in nullifying another one of his creations, we discover that Will is getting a little freaky with his creations as he kisses Platinum, glad the android woman sees herself as his slave. Owlman and Ultraman blast through his lab wall, demanding to know where the Star Lab's object is, and Platinum tries to defend her master, but Ultraman easily rips out the responsometer in her chest, killing her. It's interesting that Wade is, along with exploring the villains a little bit more, is doing sort of the same thing with the so-called heroes of this world, and I say so-called since a lot of them are just a rung above Ultraman and Owlman. Like here we have Will using his weapons to fight both Owlman and Ultraman, and using them to fight against what they want, but then he's also kind of like a sex weirdo who's fucking about with his own creations, whom also view him as their master and they are his slaves. So it's not so much good guy versus bad guy, it's just bad guy versus even badder guy. And I really quite like that approach. We saw it as well in like other iterations of EARTH-3 where people like Alexander Luthor, they were heroes, but they were also very like morally grey and were up to some really terrible shit themselves as well. A version of Mercury soon appears, and thanks to his liquid form, he jumps down Owlman's throat, beginning to drown him from the inside out, as Will activates the K-robots, something Ultraman knows won't hurt him, since green kryptonite makes him stronger. Will obviously knows this and reveals he tweaks the green radiation wavelength, making so that it shines out blue, which zaps Ultraman of his power. Will does the absolute wrong thing to do in a situation like this and decides to glow gloat over the villains about what he has done and what others have tried to do and how he managed to defeat Ultraman and Owlman once and for all. But it's during his heroic villainous monologue, I'm not sure really what you would call that, Ultraman actually taps his chest and activates his signal device, which across the city, Lois Lane hears and immediately comes to the villain's aid as Superwoman, ripping mercury out of Owlman's mouth and killing the liquid metal being. Superwoman wraps the K-robots up in her lasso of submission, tossing them out of the building as she asks Will if he was so smart and thought of everything, how come he did not prepare for her? So with Superwoman's introduction, I am wondering how much they will have changed or reverted in these characters' origins. Since Superwoman on Earth-3 is generally always Lois Lane, there was a time just before this book, in that really weird time where they were trying all these different things with Earth-3, where Donna Troy was the Superwoman. That didn't really last all that long, and this Superwoman was still about as well. It was just sort of like a generational thing, but I'm guessing they're gonna keep this to mostly what people know. You know, she's an Amazon, she's got the lasso of submission, she kind of has a thing with Ultraman, and then also probably Owlman and maybe Alexander Luthor, like what happened in the old Earth-3. So I imagine it's all pretty much mostly the same. But what really interested me, especially about this introduction of Superwoman and how she interacts with them, is all the dynamic between all three villains. It's interesting since it feels very much less violent and antagonistic to each other, which makes sense. You know, the crime syndicate's origins are here. They're just getting started as the crime syndicate, and they're not even the crime syndicate yet. So they aren't the jaded, duplicitous trio we usually see. We usually see them a little bit later in their careers, and here they're just all starting to get out. So there's like weird little moments where like Ultraman's kind of, scared for Owlman, or like what happened to him. Same thing goes for like Superwoman to Clark. There's like weird little bits there where they have like emotion or humanity, and that's just going to get chipped away by this world that they're on once they become the crime syndicate. And I'm really looking forward to Wade exploring that through the pages of this book. As Superwoman saves Ultraman and Owlman, Will runs off trying to get a hold of the Marvel mob or anyone who wants to buy the object from him. He just needs them there now for his protection. It's too late as Owlman cuts his throat, killing the Doctor as Ultraman finds his lead-lined safe room, ripping it open to see what fun lurks inside. Superwoman wonders what is such a big deal that Magnus was willing to deal with the other syndicates, and the villains soon find out what that object is, or should I say who it is, as Will's safe room is actually revealed to be a prison which holds the tied-up Batman and Superman of Earth-0. So this is a really great cliffhanger, and it's a pretty obvious one. Like, of course, this is how we work in the Batman and Superman that we've been following in the mainline comics into the book. They just kind of stumble into this world, and I imagine the next issue is going to reveal how they eventually got over into this world. I'm intrigued to see if it's going to be like the original Earth-3 storyline where, Alexander Luthor was just kind of using them as weapons. Like, yeah, they were there to help that world, but Alexander Luthor was definitely manipulating things to try and like point Batman and Superman and the other heroes as weapons that he could use against these people. And I'm wondering if that might happen here, because these are like bona fide heroes of this world, and they're not like, the Riddler or anyone who's trying to take over as a hero in this world because their world needs heroes. These are literal real heroes. So I'm intrigued to see how Wade's going to handle that and how he's going to weave that into the storyline, with them maybe trying to take the place of Ultraman and Owlman on this world and just trying to help them in some way, help the world in some way. I can't wait to see what he has in store with it. Either way, I think we're in for a really good time with Mark Waid on the helm of this book. Batman Superman World's Finest issue 48 was a fantastic new introduction to the Earth-3 crime syndicate. Brand new origin story for all of these characters, and so far it's really damn cool. I love the dynamic that Waid is setting out for Ultraman, Owlman, and Superwoman. It's a really fun early look at their career that we never really got before. It's interesting to see how fresh-faced they are and how different they are to the more jaded, older versions we know and love. The expansion of Earth-3's lore as well, with different things like Talons, Riddlers, Doom Patrol. Their version of the Doom Patrol was really cool. I like what Waid is doing here, while also doing a story of the origin of the Earth-3 characters. We're getting more of their lore and more of their world explored that we never really got in anything else. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and how Batman and Superman factor into this world and how their adventure goes in this world. It's going to be a really fun time, I think. I'm going to give this issue a 9 out of 10.